Nikola Tesla is often remembered as the man who gave us electricity, radio, and wireless energy. But if you look closely, you'll see that Tesla's real work wasn't only about machines. It was about perception, about how we see reality. He believed that what we call matter is just energy vibrating at different frequencies. In his words, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." It sounds scientific, but the meaning behind it is almost philosophical, even spiritual. Tesla was describing not just the structure of the universe, but the structure of awareness itself. When he spoke about energy and vibration, he wasn't only referring to waves on a spectrum. He was pointing to something fundamental. That everything, thoughts, emotions, objects, is part of one continuous field of movement. Science would call it a field of electromagnetism. Philosophy might call it being, or consciousness. Different words, same intuition. That existence is not made of things, but of relations. Patterns of energy that appear and dissolve. In that sense, Tesla's view of the universe was deeply holistic. He didn't see humans as separate observers, but as participants in that field of vibration. Each mind, each thought, each act of creativity was another pattern in the same energy. That's why he once said, "My brain is only a receiver." In the universe there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated the secrets of this core, but I know that it exists. To most people, that sounds mystical. But if you strip away the language, what he's describing is something simple. That thought is not a private possession. We often say, "I had an idea." But have you ever noticed that ideas arrive by themselves? They emerge when the mind is quiet, not when it's forcing itself to think. Tesla seemed to live in that space of quiet attention. He said he could visualize entire inventions in his mind, run them for weeks, observe how parts wore down, and correct them, all before building a single prototype. That kind of clarity doesn't come from effort. It comes from alignment. From being tuned to what he called the core of the universe. A state where awareness and insight meet without resistance. If you think about it, this perspective changes what intelligence means. In our culture, intelligence is something to prove. We measure it with tests, grades, achievements. But Tesla's view was the opposite. That the more you quiet down, the more intelligence can move through you. You don't generate understanding. You receive it, like a signal. Once the static of self-interest fades. In that sense, Tesla wasn't just ahead of his time technologically. He was ahead of his time consciously. He was describing what neuroscience and psychology are only beginning to notice. That creativity and insight often happen when the thinking mind steps aside. Tesla also believed that science should eventually study what he called non-physical phenomena. He said, "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence." To understand what he meant, we need to look at what science was in his era. In the late 19th century, science was still rooted in materialism. The idea that only measurable, physical things are real. Tesla didn't reject that. He expanded it. He saw that every measurement is already filtered through perception, through awareness. And that awareness itself, though not physical, is the foundation of all observation. So when Tesla spoke about the non-physical, He wasn't talking about ghosts or superstition. He was talking about the context in which all science happens. The field of consciousness that allows any observation to exist. It's a subtle but important shift. Most of us believe we are separate observers, looking out at a world of objects. Tesla saw the opposite. The observer and the observed are two expressions of one underlying movement. That insight appears in many traditions. Eastern philosophy calls it oneness. Quantum physics calls it the field. Tesla experienced it as energy, the invisible link between thought, matter, and life. He once said that when he was alone at night, he could sense the pulse of the earth itself. Not metaphorically, but as a direct, living rhythm. To him, silence wasn't emptiness. It was signal. It was where understanding began. In that light, Tesla's solitude makes sense. He lived alone for most of his life, working late into the night, feeding pigeons in the park, speaking softly to them as if they were old friends. Many thought he had gone mad, but maybe he had simply stepped into a quieter frequency, one that most people no longer notice. He once said that he could feel a light in every living being. The same light that fills the entire universe. That wasn't poetry. It was observation. From someone who had spent a lifetime listening to what can't be measured. And that's where Tesla's ideas still matter today. We live in a world of constant noise. Notifications, opinions, explanations. We think faster than we notice. We explain before we see. Tesla's way of looking asks something different. It asks us to slow down enough to sense the invisible structure behind everything we know. What if intelligence isn't accumulation, but awareness? What if knowledge doesn't come from analysis, but from connection? The kind of attention that doesn't divide the world into me and it. Tesla's work, in that sense, is unfinished. Because it points beyond technology to the transformation of perception itself. So perhaps his real message wasn't about electricity at all. It was about sensitivity. About realizing that everything we touch, think, or feel is part of a single movement of energy. And that we participate in that movement every moment we're aware. To live from that awareness is to see the world the way Tesla saw it. Not as a collection of separate things, but as a living field of resonance, where thought, matter, and meaning are all the same current, just vibrating at different speeds. And once you notice that, you don't have to believe anything new. You simply begin to see more clearly what has always been there. Thank you for listening. This has been What We Are, the enlightened legacy of human thought. Until next time, stay attuned to the unseen frequency of awareness, the field where thought becomes light.